Well, I read a lot, and like most of us, I have access to pretty much any book that's out there, whether it's a bestseller or a book written hundreds of years ago. I can buy it online, bookstore, I can pick it up at the library. 3 million Canadians, however, have what's called a print disability, and for them, the reading options are much more limited. The CNIB is among those calling for change. Christall Beaudry is Executive Director of the CNIB here in Saskatchewan, and Becky Zerr is a Regina mom who lost her sight a few years back. They're both in our Regina studio. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So, Christall, just starting with you, what are we talking about when we say print disability? What's included in that?
So when we talk about a print disability, we're really talking about a learning disability or a physical disability or a visual disability. So when we look at a learning disability, it could be just the comprehension on print word. When we're talking about a physical disability, it could be the ability to hold a book.
So you might not have arms
mobility.
or hands.
Absolutely,
yeah,
a mobility
okay.
issue that you're not able to hold the book. And then a visual disability, obviously you can't see the text on the book or you can't focus enough to see the words on the page. So those are three of the print disabilities that we talk about.
Okay, and Becky, what's your situation when it comes to books?
Well, like you mentioned, I lost my sight almost 4 years ago. And one of the things that I loved to do prior to was reading stories to my son at bedtime. And he was 3 when I lost my sight. So I went one day from reading him a story to something the next day that I couldn't just do. So I was able to regain a small amount to my sight thanks to an amazing medical team. But I still couldn't pick up a tangible book and see it. So I had an appointment at the CNIB and I met with their low vision specialist. And I knew she was going to likely hand me a magnifier and I'd be on my way, but instead she asked me some questions and wanted to know what were the things I missed. And with some emotion I shared with her, it was reading bedtime stories to my son Bennett. And, she did hand me that magnifier, but at the same time, she also handed me a little piece of my life back because I went home that night and I sat beside my son's bed and together I read him a bedtime story. I don't think any of us remembered what the story was about because I think we were more focused on it was actually happening. I was doing something I never thought I'd be able to do again.
Yeah, and something that parents just take for granted, right?
Yes,
They
absolutely.
So when you lost your vision, did you have access to any children's books at all? Were you completely cut off from reading?
I was completely cut off from reading. Yes, absolutely. I had nothing. I was new to the visually impaired world too, so I wasn't aware of all the supports that were out there and where or how to access that information. So we took it upon ourselves. Actually, my mother-in-law brought in 2 books that she had found, and they were songs. It was Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star and The Wheels on the Bus. And those are the 2 books that I used when I had no sight at all. Because as a blind person still to today, I don't actually know the art of Braille.
Yeah, okay, because of course we make these assumptions, right? That, well, if you're blind, you can get a book that's in Braille, but not everyone can read Braille. So, Christall, when you hear Becky's story, tell us some other stories of people that you've come across who have talked to you about their access to books. What kinds of stories have you heard?
If you think of it as an avid reader, if I want to pick up the latest copy of Harry Potter for my child, I just go to a bookstore, order it on Amazon, or pick it up at the library. But for other individuals who have sight loss or who have a print disability, it's not always that accessible. You could have to wait years before that book becomes in an alternate format. So, we hear those stories every day, especially if you're an avid reader and you want to keep up with the latest novel of whatever series you're reading.
Well, there's a new bestseller on the list. You can just, most of us take it for granted. We can just go order it or pick it up.
Absolutely, and that's not the case for so many people with a print disability. We're talking about 10,000 new books that come onto the market that are published every year, and CNIB transcribes 2,000 of those into an accessible alternative format. So there's an 8,000 gap every single year, and that just keeps multiplying, right?
And Becky, have you felt that? I mean, your priority, you hear about reading to your child, but what about for your own reading? What impact has that had?
Well, I believe that every Canadian has the right to read or should have the right to read. And in turn, it promotes literacy, knowledge, and empowerment. So with myself, yes, I totally miss just reading, the random little romance novel or something. So I personally use audiobooks. I am, like Christall said, fairly behind in the newest version of what's out, and I can't have those up-to-date conversations. So it does leave me a little bit behind, but I'm optimistic that I think we can work together with the government, with the resources that we have right now, and build that knowledge out there. And hopefully the publishers will realize that there is this gap, and just because people are blind or partially sighted, they too love the art of reading.
So what exactly are you pushing for, Christall?
So CNIB produces 2,000 alternative format materials, but as I said, there's 10,000 that come out on the market every year. So we really are looking for a sustainable model to fund. So right now, the 2,000 that are printed are funded out about $3 million through donor dollars through CNIB. There's a little portion of that that's federally funded, but we are looking for sustainable dollars. And we also want to increase the number of alternative formats out there for the reasons that we talked about this morning.
So what else beyond Braille? What are some of those alternative formats?
So there's a format called Daisy, which is really an audible format that's narrated by a human. And that's one format. We talk about text, adaptive technology that's read as well, and then Braille. So those are kind of three of the alternative formats that we're talking about.
And you're looking for more government commitment to pay, like getting the CNIB off using donor money to pay for it, and you're looking for government money
Absolutely.
for that?
We're certainly looking for sustainable government dollars to produce those materials. And we're also looking for the government to really stand true to the commitment that they made when they signed as the 20th country on the Marrakesh Treaty.
What is that?
So the Marrakesh Treaty is really, it's about accessibility and cross-border. So prior to Marrakesh, if you wanted to have a book that was in an alternate format, you couldn't send it to another country and share that book, right? So everybody had to produce their own.
Because of copyright.
That's right. But Marrakesh is actually to tear down those barriers and actually allow cross-border sharing of alternative format materials. So that if Canada produces 2,000 and the U.S. produces 2,000 and another country, they can share them across border so that we're producing 6,000 now in a year rather than just 2,000.
Any sign that this is on the federal government's radar at all?
Well, I think the federal government is taking a look at it, but like in any other priority, they have to look at all their priorities. So we're really hoping that they'll take a stronger look and look at funding this for people who have a print disability.
Becky, what does a perfect world look like to you when it comes to books?
A perfect world would be just doing the same thing as you and I walk into the bookstore together. You go pick up your copy and I pick up mine, whether it be an adult novel for myself or a novel or a early reading novel for my son.
All right.
Equal access.
Thanks so much for coming in, both of you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for your time. I appreciate it.